There was an age without Annecy's Animation Film Festival. There was also an age before J.R.R. Tolkien. But lucky for us, we live today, and we have both. With us today we have Mr. Chou, producer of the film, Kenji Kamiyama, director, and Philippa Boyens, producer also, and known for screenwriting a lot with Peter Jackson.
Yes.
So you might be the the most experienced of us on the Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Not for anime, but for Middle Earth, yes.
Well, you're just after a behind-the-scenes presentation with Annecy's audience. How did it go? Can you give us your impression for each of you?
I mean, I could feel the energy in the room, and I think it was amazing. I think the crowds here are really knowledgeable, which is great, and I respect that. And actually the biggest cheer was when Joseph asked some of the guys who are actual animators, who we're attempting to kill, the amount of work they've got to get done, to stand up. And the audience went wild, and that was amazing to see. It was such a good thing to do. Yeah.
How did you feel the moment, you two?
僕はアヌシー2回目なんですけれど、アヌシーのファンの人たちっていうのはすごくアニメーションに対して温かい声援を送ってくれるし、大きなファンなので、いつもここに来るたびにすごく彼らに感謝をしてます。
It's the second time for him being in Annecy, but just a warm welcome, from the audience, and it's just wonderful for him, and he really is very appreciative of them just being so supportive in the moment, and just to see them, in their reaction is very good for him. Yeah.
And for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess, they already said it, but I think just being in Annecy it just feels so nice because of the warm welcome. I mean, I think the community of animation is a little different from, other artistic communities. But we, when we come here, we do feel like we're at home. And just seeing the reaction though from the fans, and then in live actually, just to see their live reaction. It's something that we don't get to see when we're working. So it was wonderful, and it really gave us a huge encouragement. Just because we're not done with the film yet, So
it's what's quite amazing, because we are in an animation film festival, and you are coming today to present a lot of work, but which is not animated yet. So it has this interesting equation in which you present a non-animated work, and this is Annecy's audience with its reaction that tells you what's going to be animated or not. Is it a part of the...
It's being able to feel what they're responding to, you mean? Yeah, you definitely got that, I think. I could feel the murmur when Helm walked into the room, he's voiced by Brian Cox, and I think they just... they were swept into it. You could kind of feel it, which was great. So, I don't know. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
継続的にすごいものを作ってくださいねと。もう反応がすごかった。
Philippa, you've been following The Lord of the Rings since its rebirth with Peter Jackson.
Yes.
It's been an unexpected journey, if I may say.
I like it. Nice. Very good.
What's the following part of the journey? Because it seems there was the first part, and now it's the beginning of the second.
Yeah, this has been such a good way back into the world. I don't think any of us could have faced jumping into a huge, massive, epic trilogy, which was going to take 7 years. But it's not just about this being, maybe a little smaller in terms of the scale, but it's still a big film. And but it's been a joy because it's fresh and it's different, and everything that anime is bringing to the story is working really, really well with Professor Tolkien's world. Actually, I'll tell you something that not many people know, and that is that when, I'm not sure I've told you guys this, when Professor Tolkien, he loved to draw. He was an artist as well. And he was very poor, and he got a scholarship to Oxford University, and that was the first time he had a little bit of money to spend. So he went to his, what they call digs in Oxford, his room in Oxford. Guess what? One of the first things he bought was some Japanese prints, some Japanese woodcuts to put on his wall. So I think that it's, you know, he obviously loved that visual style. So, and I think weirdly that sort of must have influenced him in some way. And it's definitely working. It's working beautifully.
And actually, I'm not sure, as you say, a lot of persons know that Tolkien might have been influenced by Japan way of expressing art.
No, it's I remembered it and I went and checked it. It's a reference that was made in his biography, and I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It makes sense, right? And I gave Kamiyama a book of his artwork that Professor Tolkien actually drew as a present because I thought, yeah.
And it's really interesting because as a very young reader of Tolkien, mm-hmm. and I remember that there was those drawings always. It was not a novel, but it was a novel with hints of imagination.
For the Hobbit, yes, exactly. Yes, his work, absolutely, yes.
And now that the Lord of the Rings is coming back to the drawings, to animation, there is a lot to explore. Actually, there's a new Middle Earth to
There is,
grow.
And also we need to remember that Professor Tolkien would only have conceived of any kind of film being animated, that he would have had no conception really of it any other way. And actually the very first Lord of the Rings films that ever existed were both animation, mm-hmm. you know, so it feels right. And I know that Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh were, you know, hugely supportive of this project because they knew that that this was, you know, a good direction to go in instead of retreading old paths, to do something exciting like this. So yeah, it's been great so far.
You are mentioning the previous animated version mm-hmm. of Lord of the Rings. I can think of Ralph Bakshi in 1978.
And the Rankin Bass.
And is this a huge influence on what you are doing today with the Lord of the Rings?
直接はないんですけれど、やっぱりアニメーションにしていくときにどういう雰囲気にするべきかっていう、やっぱり書かなければいけないので、そういったところは少なからず影響を受けているとは思います。
So not particularly in terms of style, but really just trying to render the world in animation. I mean, you got to render it into drawings and the challenge of it. And so maybe it is something that influenced them. Well, it is a huge challenge, and there are all these things that you got to render and a lot to do. And it's a huge challenge, and that's something he took away from those titles. Yeah.
When you give birth to new parts of a legend, how do you manage to write the new chapters? We know that there are a few books in Tolkien's work, and one title is tickling me. It's Unfinished Tales. Mm-hmm. How do you get to finish the tale, actually? Whose authority says, okay, that's the good end? Is there Christopher working with you? Is there...
He was very responsible, I think, for preserving and not just the integrity of his father's work, but also I think he was responsible for pulling together the threads of his father's unfinished work, and he put out some beautiful. So after Professor Tolkien's death, Christopher was able to take all those papers, take all those writings, and give us more, which was to everybody's benefit, the world's benefit, I think. But for us, I think you have a responsibility, obviously, to the source material, but you also have a responsibility to film. And we have a responsibility to the studio, too. We're putting a lot of money into this. So, that's always been a bit of a conflict there. But, we've got to somehow make that film, that story work on film. First and foremost, it needs to work on film. With this story, and why it works so well, I think, is because we only have about 3 or 4 paragraphs that are really, really relevant to this story. We know a bit about the characters. We know about Helm. We know that he had 2 sons. We know that he was challenged by one of his nobles called Freyka, who suggested Wolf marry his daughter. And here's the interesting thing. We know there's a daughter, but we don't know her name. We know nothing else about her, which was actually a gift for us, because we could then take what we knew from the way Professor Tolkien wrote other female characters like Éowyn, and draw upon some history that was very relevant to the Rohirrim, and create her and tell her story. So hopefully it's a mix of being as faithful as we possibly can to his original works. But there was a quote that Professor Tolkien himself said, and he wrote it in one of his letters to, I think it was a fan, that he hoped other minds would come to this mythology he had created, wielding music and drama and art, which is perfect. So I think he was open to that idea, because if you're going to keep a story alive, if you're going to keep a mythology, because he didn't just write stories, he wrote a vast world of imagination, then you need to let other people in. And nothing we do can take away from the magnificence of what he's done. All we can do is share our interpretation. It's just like Shakespeare can be reimagined 1,000,000 times, and it doesn't take anything away from him. So hopefully our little morsel that we're dropping into, he called story a pot of soup. So we're chucking in our morsel into the pot of soup of story, and we'll see if people want to drink it.
Thank you very much for
thank you.
such Middle-earthy meeting. We are really glad to have you here in Annecy, and we cannot wait for you coming back with the rest of the work. Let's say that.
It's in their hands. So
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And have an amazing time in Annecy.
We love Annecy.
And
stunning.
See you next year, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or every year after.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna invite us.
You are invited right now.
Okay.
We'll be there.
All right. We'll be here.